Well, good evening, boys and girls. This is Mr. Archer with you again this evening after a relatively brief interlude from Mr. Archer videos because, well, we get sidetracked sometimes. But I find myself this evening outside the chaos room. I was just inside the chaos room, but there was too much chaos, so I came back out. And I've driven past this place so many times on Main Street, and I've seen the sign and always been drawn to it because that symbol, for all the bad rap that it may or may not get, as well as the word, the symbol in itself merely symbolizes infinite outward expansion in every conceivable direction simultaneously. I mean, that sounds like, if you use your imagination, it sounds kind of like the Big Bang almost, that supposedly created everything. So they say, which I don't know, I don't remember being there. Anyway, the point being, I found it kind of ironic that I find myself inside and outside the chaos room this evening, which would also have to do with superposition of states. But shenanigans, boys and girls. Point being, just yesterday, this thing popped into my mind and I came across it, or however that works. I became aware of it, whatever. And it almost seems to directly relate to chaos. And so I'm going to read it to you from 9/15/2022. The Immovable Body and the Irresistible Force. Absolute space, in its own nature, without relation to anything external, remains always similar and immovable. Absolute, true, and mathematical time, of itself and from its own nature, flows equally without relation to anything external. Sir Isaac Newton. As I was watching a video on YouTube this evening called What Actually Are Space and Time? History of the Universe, the above mentioned quote by Isaac Newton was referenced. This is the first time I've ever come across this particular quote, though as soon as I heard it, something was triggered in my mind, and I was reminded of the old paradox. What would happen if an immovable body were to meet an irresistible force? In the above assertion by Newton, based on his own description, we can infer that he considers absolute space as equating to the immovable body in the above paradoxical scenario. Side note, I say on this, see the dependence of the independent variables, which is in my other journal, but it directly relates to this as well. Anyway, continuing, by way of similar description and reasoning, we can also infer that he would thus consider absolute time as equating to the irresistible force in said scenario. Though, before now, I've never heard this quote verbatim, in the past, I've considered the concept these words represent on many separate occasions, and the most tersely accurate solution I could come up with is the old adage concerning relativity. Nothing exists in itself. Depending upon one's interpretation of the semantics, the paradoxical question at issue may well be a moot point to begin with. By literal definition of the terms immovable and irresistible, in a universe where one of the two exists, by literal definition, the other could not exist. There can be either one, an immovable body, in which case it would prove itself to be immovable and resistant to any force throughout the realm of time, or there can be two, an irresistible force, in which case it would prove itself to be irresistible to any body of space or their effects upon it throughout a similar realm or period of time. It should also be noted that the measurement of perceived time would seem to be the common factor between and linking the two, while also determining and or canceling out its counterpart. By definition, upon the instant of an observed defining measurement from another defining each as being either one or the other. Upon further considering this thought, in my opinion, I would have to conjecture that the immovable body is the one which does not exist, because the universe in itself is an irresistible force. Unless your own perception dictates that you consider the universe in itself as being an immovable body, in which case they would be one and the same, the alpha and the omega. But anyway, that's just what I came up with. Deep thought of the day, boys and girls. Farewell from the Chaos Room. We shall see you all later. Bye for now.